We've been doing it for centuries, travelling the world to experience something different to what we have at home. There are numerous types of travel. Travel for adventure, travel for just rest and relaxation, travel to experience different cultures and food, travel to shop, and even travel for business. For decades now, we have simply taken travel for granted. Sure, it was once a very expensive exercise to travel overseas, but with the growth of airline technology, travel to far-off lands has become cheap enough for almost everyone to enjoy. Then in early 2020, disaster. Once the coronavirus became a pandemic, countries started shutting their borders entirely to anyone other than returning citizens. Tourism was killed off overnight, and now millions of people are struggling to survive the world over. When the pandemic first hit in early 2020, we were told we needed to flatten the curve. Millions of people were locked in their homes. Movement was restricted, apart from a little daily exercise or popping down to the supermarket to shop. Small businesses simply went out of business. Tourist towns and cities became like ghost towns, with zero travellers keeping local business alive. Now, exactly a year later, things seem to have only got worse. We are now living in what can only be described as a dystopian future, not unlike what George Orwell predicted. We are now being promised a return to a new normal if we all acquiesce to taking an experimental vaccine. And even if we do take the experimental vaccine, we're also now being told that it doesn't guarantee a return to normal, as they don't really know if it will even work. Numerous scientists and even the makers of the experimental vaccines are starting to tell us it will not protect us from getting the virus. It will simply lessen the symptoms. And then even more crazy sounding, being vaccinated will not stop us spreading the virus. Or as the epidemiologists like to call it, shedding the virus onto others. I love that word, shedding the virus. It all makes me wonder what the hell we are trying to achieve here. The narrative doesn't even make sense, that you need to take an experimental vaccine to protect me from a virus that I have a 99.7% chance of surviving should I get it. On top of that, the whole world is now talking about the vaccine passports that we're all going to need to travel and even to visit sporting events, concerts, even to get into a restaurant. Again, how does having a digital passport help when the vaccine supposedly doesn't stop the virus? Okay, so that's a little rant of my confused state right now. So let's just assume these vaccines do work in some way and we are allowed to travel, albeit as long as we have been vaccinated. What will travel look like in the future? Well, it appears mask wearing will still be mandatory. Temperature checks compulsory everywhere you go. PCR and swab tests will have to be done, and a negative result will be required no more than 72 hours before departure. Upon arrival to your holiday destination, you'll have to go through what will appear to be like an extended immigration, with further checks and compliance to complete, more temperature checks, more swab tests, and checking of your COVID documents. Even after getting through all that, you will most likely have to stay quarantined at your hotel, or worse, a designated quarantine facility to up to 72 hours while you await the test results from the test done at the airport on your arrival. And what about the cost? With literally millions of people unable or unwilling to travel due to the regulations, airlines will no longer have that frequency and capacity to provide reasonably priced airfares. Costs will soar dramatically. Sure, you may find some fantastic hotel deals at your destination, but the huge increases in airline ticket costs will make travel inaccessible to many, many people other than the wealthy. But don't just take my word for it. This is what the WEF, the World Economic Forum, said recently in one of their meetings in Davos in Switzerland. travel health requirements may soon start to resemble the past. In the 1970s, having appropriate vaccinations and health clearances was essential for travel to and from many countries. Coronavirus vaccinations will likely become similarly standard for international flights. This should be rapidly adopted by all countries and could even be applied more broadly in hotels, for example. However, any vaccination regime will need governments to pass strong laws and regulations. Digital travel passes and vaccination passports may be one solution, but in order to work, these will require standardization across all borders. One solution may be the Common Pass. That's a new digital health passport that looks to be a trustworthy model for validating people's COVID-free status consistently across the globe. Other health measures will also remain vital, including mandatory in-flight masks, pre-departure and arrival testing, just like I said, mandatory quarantining and social distancing. If vaccination uptake in destinations is low, these measures will become even more important. So there you have it. It's not a great look. 2021, probably out of the question. 2022, possibly. But that's just my take on what the future of travel is going to look like. I'm Mr. Steve, and this is another update on your news. Not Bali today, but travel in general. Look forward to seeing you again soon.